Hey there, and welcome to a new episode of the Dietitian Success Podcast, the business marketing and entrepreneurship podcast specifically for registered dietitians. I'm Krista Kolajesic. I am your host, and my goal is always to help dietitians think more like entrepreneurs. So, with this podcast, every week I take a few questions from the audience and I answer them in real time so that you can get free information about business and entrepreneurship designed specifically for dietitians. And if you're new here, I always like to start with a little business, entrepreneurship, personal update. So, as many of you know, I'm the founder of Dietitian Success Center. If you are new here and you do not know what Dietitian Success Center is, make sure and check us out. We are the resource and professional development library for registered dietitians. We've recently just launched our entrepreneurship tier of the membership, which is really designed to help dietitians who are starting and growing businesses in whatever area. It doesn't have to be private practice, can be consulting, freelancing. It could be that you have a business and you're wanting to expand your offers. Our goal is really to make it as multifaceted as possible to really help dietitian entrepreneurs across the board. So the other thing that I've talked about over the last few weeks is that we have been knee-deep in the planning for our very first in-person summit this September 28th to 30th. It's going to be hosted in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. And we are so excited. It's called the Dietitian Success Summit. The link to join the waitlist is in the description of this episode. If you're not on the waitlist yet, make sure and join the waitlist if you think you may want to buy a ticket for it, because the waitlist has been popping and we are going to have a fixed number of tickets. So we have a capacity for the venue and we have to stay within that capacity. So we do anticipate that tickets will sell quickly. And so if you do want to come, make sure you join the waitlist so that you get first dibs on those tickets. But all that to say, if you have ever wondered about planning an in-person event, it's a lot of fun and it's also a lot of logistics. Right now we've solidified the venue, the Toronto Beach Club, really cool venue. This is not your average conference. Let's just say that. And we are doing that super intentionally to make sure that you get a different experience than what you've gotten at perhaps dietitian conferences in the past. Our goal is to sort of give a modern take on what a dietitian meeting and what dietitians connecting can look like. So the Toronto Beach Club, super cool venue, amazing food, really cool vibe, just set up to be to really facilitate that connection and facilitate amazing speakers, amazing sessions, and just conversation with other dietitians. It can feel lonely sometimes being a dietitian. And so we really want to create that space for dietitians to be able to connect in a meaningful way. So we have solidified the venue. Right now, we are solidifying our speakers as well. We are going to be having speakers, so it's going to be a 3-day summit. And we will have speakers. It's not going to be back-to-back speakers all day, every day. I think one of the things that we've found is that can feel a little draining, especially if it's a multi-day event. So we're really being super intentional about making sure we space out the sessions and we allow for a lot of implementation time as well, because our other goal is to make sure that you walk away from the summit with very tangible action steps. So you're not just walking away with a whole bunch of information and you're wondering, what am I supposed to do with this? But you have tangible action steps. And so the summit is really going to be designed for dietitians in all areas of practice, because the first 2 days are really going to be focused on professional and personal growth, regardless of your area of practice. We'll talk more about that in the weeks to come. And then the third day is going to be the upgraded ticket, which is the entrepreneurship ticket. And the third day is really going to be all about building out your business plan for the next 12 months, which is going to be so fun. So yeah, that's really sort of an insider's view into what we are doing with the summit, where we're at. We are also in the process of booking a photographer, videographer, looking for brand sponsors as well. So if you know of anyone who may be interested in sponsoring the event, if your spouse, your partner, your friend, works for a company that is really interested in getting in touch with more dietitians, then let us know. Send us a DM at Dietitian Success Center or me personally at kristaco.rd on Instagram, or shoot me an email, krista@dietitiansuccesscenter.com. Okay. So I will talk more about the event as weeks come. I like to always give that sort of insider perspective on like, what does it actually look like to do something? Obviously, my goal is that I would love for you to come to the summit, but I also want you to learn a little bit about like, what does it actually look like to put on an in-person event? What are some of the steps that need to be taken? And so that is my intention there. Okay. So today in the podcast, we are going to talk a little bit about number one, comparisonitis. So what do you do when you see a lot of dietitians out there that seem to be doing similar work to you, or maybe are working with a similar population group? How do you not get in your head about it? And how do you continue to move forward with peace and with confidence? We'll talk a little bit about pivoting niches or pivoting business design. So maybe you've started with something and you're not really feeling it anymore. And so you want to pivot. So we're going to talk about that and what that looks like, what that means, if you should or if you shouldn't. And then lastly, I want to talk a little bit about how do you know how much to pay yourself in your business? This is a question, funny enough. Sometimes I do find that there's certain questions that for whatever reason, they just come up again and again in a specific or in a short period of time. So this is a question that's come up in our community. It's come up in our on-demand business coaching feature of the entrepreneurship membership. It's come up in our biweekly Q&A session. So it's come up quite a bit. And so I want to talk about that as well. Okay, so let's start off with question number one, which is really around comparison and comparisonitis. So the question is, someone else has recently started a business in the same niche as me, and they seem to be doing it bigger and better. How do you stay focused on your own business without constantly comparing yourself? Okay, so to answer this question, I always like to start with a little bit of a level set. And the level set here is that a level set meaning, what kind of a mindset shift do you have to have in order to see this question in a different light? So what I want to start with is the idea that there is any sort of saturation in dietetics. And let me start off by saying that saturation, or the idea that, there can't be more than one person working in a specific niche, or like multiple hundreds of dietitians working in the same niche, is completely a myth. So saturation in dietetics is a myth. Why is that a myth? Why am I very confident in saying that that's a myth? Well, because if we look at the number of dietitians that there are, even worldwide, but like let's just look at North America. In the United States, there's about 110,000 RDs-ish. And in Canada, there's about 13 to 15,000. So US 110,000, in Canada 13 to 15,000. So across North America, we're looking at like 120 to 125,000 dietitians in total. Now, when we look at that compared to the actual population, there's 370 million people across Canada and the United States. So what that means is that there's essentially one dietitian for every 3,000 people. Now, obviously not every person is going to need support from a registered dietitian, but they kind of do, right? Like we know this to be true, right? Nutrition impacts all areas of life. And if we actually think about the number of people who have nutrition-related conditions or who are looking for chronic disease prevention, chronic disease support, support with diabetes, support with sports nutrition, support with pediatric nutrition, with eating disorders, with intuitive eating, with et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Like the number of dietitians out there is so, so, so few compared to the number of people that actually need support from a registered dietitian. And the other thing that is a really important mindset reframe, or a really important, like, oh, aha moment, is that just because, so when you start a business and you start creating content on social media, the algorithm is going to get a sense of the fact that, like, that is your interest area. And that is clearly an area that you maybe want to see more content about, or you want to learn more about. And so it will start serving you up more content that is like the content that you are putting out there into the world. And also, just because of who we are as people, as dietitians, we tend to like to support other dietitians, right? So we'll see other dietitians on Instagram and we'll follow them, we'll engage with their content, or Instagram will show us more content from registered dietitians. So what happens then is that we tend to get a little bit of a inaccurate perception of the landscape. We are fed a lot of content about nutrition. We are fed a lot of content from dietitians. We are fed a lot of dietitian profiles. And that is not the same for the general population. And in fact, that's not the case for the general population. In fact, when you get a follower who is maybe somebody within your target audience, somebody within your niche, you may actually be the only dietitian that they follow, the only resource that they have who is talking about nutrition and food in the way that you are talking about it. And so because of that, we need to make sure that we are creating content for our target audience. We are not creating it for other dietitians. So again, just because you are surrounded with dietitians in the online space does not mean that your ideal client is, or that the general population is. In fact, they almost certainly are not. So that is a really important reframe, and it's a really important shift to say, okay, when I'm putting myself out there online, when I'm creating content, I need to make sure I'm creating it for the people I'm trying to attract, and I'm not creating it for other dietitians. And then the other thing too is, just because you see somebody else creating a business that is like in a similar niche to you, again, like, it doesn't mean that your ideal client is seeing both of your businesses and comparing them, right? Like, this is a you thing. You need to make sure you stay in your lane, you stay focused on what you are doing, and really trying to stay away from the comparisonitis. That's what I call it. That comparisonitis, which is like the kind of heavy feeling, the feeling where you see somebody doing something similar and you just don't feel great about what you're doing, because you start to get in your head about it and think, oh, they're just doing it way better than me, or they have a bigger following than me, or they must be making more money than me. We actually have no idea, right? The other thing too is that that person might actually just be really good at social media marketing. Maybe they had a background in marketing and they're just really good at putting themselves on Instagram, and they may be making $0 doing that, right? Just because they appear to look like they have it all together, it doesn't necessarily mean that they don't, that they do. And so we need to make sure we also, remind ourselves of that just because something looks a certain way doesn't mean it is a certain way. So creating content for your target audience, really making sure that you are staying in your lane. Now, the other thing here too is, well, the follow-up question to this would be, okay, well, but what if I still find that I am getting hung up in comparisonitis? I'm seeing other people doing similar work to me, and I'm second guessing myself. I'm second guessing my value, my worth. There's a couple different directions you can take here. You can make the conscious decision to use that as fuel for inspiration over what is possible. So, looking at other dietitian business owners and thinking to yourself, wow, that is incredible. I am so grateful that they are showing me what is possible. Versus looking at that as competition. Because again, if we know that there are more than enough potential clients to go around, well, then, there really is no competition. And I think one of the biggest pieces of value for me in starting my business was when I used to listen to podcast episodes where I would hear stories from other people who are further ahead than me. And it always felt so powerful to be able to say to myself, whoa, like that is possible. The only reason why I think I am where I am in business is because I've been able to see other people build big businesses, and it shows me what is possible. And so you have to make that conscious decision to view other people's stories or other people's profiles as inspiration versus competition. But if you do feel like you're getting in the space of like, if you're just too deep in the comparisonitis and you're feeling like it's actually impacting what you do or how you behave. So for example, if you see somebody doing similar work to you and you feel like it's making you second guess the message that you put out there into the world, or the style or the content that you put out there, or your philosophy around nutrition and food, if you feel like you're second guessing yourself, then that also might be a good opportunity to just mute those accounts. That's totally okay. You can for sure do that. You can still show support from afar. You can still, follow people if you want to. And then you can also mute them if you want to. If you just don't feel like it's healthy for you to see that content in your feed, if you feel like it's influencing you in a way that's making you second guess yourself. Now, I do this for sure. I do this for other dietitians who are talking about business and entrepreneurship. And the reason why is just simply because I want to make sure that I stay true and authentic to my own message and my own beliefs around entrepreneurship and business. And I just don't want to be second guessing myself. Or you guys know that I've talked about this openly on the podcast, that like I guess my word for the year is really around courage and confidence, and really stepping into the space of dietitian entrepreneurship and really, owning my authority in that space. And so part of that journey is me having to just do that on my own accord and not being influenced by how other people talk about entrepreneurship. Because that's the other thing too, is like, how I talk about something has to be authentic to me. And in turn, it's going to attract the people that resonate with my message, right? And if I'm looking at other people, and if I'm listening to how other people are talking about things, then in turn, perhaps my message becomes less authentically me, and I'm just regurgitating information that is somebody else's take on business and entrepreneurship. And I don't want to do that. And so really, I like to just sort of stay in my lane. I like to not consume. I like to just, I love Instagram. I love creating content on Instagram. And I also don't consume that type of content on Instagram. And you can set those boundaries for yourself. Don't be afraid to do that. Okay, so that was question number 1, which was around comparisonitis and looking at other businesses in the same niche as you. So let's move on to question number 2, which is about pivoting. Okay, so the question is, I've spent the last few years building my business around a specific niche, but lately I've been feeling less excited about the work and more drawn to a different area. At the same time, I'm worried about walking away from something I've invested so much time building. How do you decide when it's actually time to pivot versus pushing through a phase where motivation is just a bit low? Okay, so the very first thing that I want to address here is the idea that the grass is always greener on the other side. So in entrepreneurship, there is a very normal cycle that happens where you start something and you're really excited about it, and your motivation is really high. Your excitement is really high. You can't wait to work on it. You can't wait to sit down at your desk and just, dive in. and you work on it and you release it and you launch it into the world. And perhaps the reception or the response is different than what you thought it would be. So maybe you put it out there into the world and it's crickets. You don't get an influx of new clients. You don't get an influx of new consulting gigs. You don't get a bunch of freelance clients reaching out to you, offering you work. And so then you have this moment of thinking, is this not working? And there's this really good visual. Oh gosh, I can't actually remember what it's called, but it's this part of the business journey is called the trough of despair, where it's like, what have I done? Like, is this going to work? This isn't working, or maybe I need to do something different, or what did I do wrong? We're second guessing ourselves. And then again, slowly, the reality actually starts to set in, which is that, you get a client or you get a consulting opportunity, and then you get another one, and then you get a few more, and then you get a few more, and then you get a few more, and then your business grows again. And so it's sort of this space where it's this idea that there is an entrepreneurial journey that has to happen. And, we have to be faced with sort of the realness of what entrepreneurship is. And I don't say that to be any sort of a fear monger or any sort of, I don't say that to make you feel down or to make you feel uninspired or to make you feel like you shouldn't do this. I actually say it for the opposite, so that you know that you're not alone. If your business is maybe slower than you thought it would be, or it's not taking off in the way that maybe you thought it would, this is entrepreneurship. And part of entrepreneurship is needing to face those hard moments and power through them and learn, okay, well, I put myself out there. I put my offer out there. Am I even marketing myself? If the answer is no, okay, well, then maybe that's my next step. I need to market myself more. Or if I've started to market myself, am I doing it effectively? Okay, maybe not. Maybe I need to do it differently. So there's this whole journey that has to happen. And I say that all to say that sometimes it can be tempting if something isn't working the way that you thought it would. Instead of powering through and figuring it out, it can be tempting to switch directions and go back to that really exciting creation part of business. Instead of powering through the hard thing and actually figuring out the original thing that you had committed to and you decided on. And so that's more so if you're at the beginning of your business, is that story. But I think it can also apply at any point in the journey. If things, again, aren't going the way that you thought, there's sometimes this false perception that something different is going to be the magic bullet, or completely changing directions is going to be the magic bullet, the thing that fixes everything, the thing that makes everything take off. The grass is always greener. It must be always greener. And that's just so often not the case. And so likely, if somebody were to come to me with this challenge or with this question of, I've been working in this niche, and in this specific scenario, it's the last few years. So if this is a person who has been working in a niche for the last few years, likely my advice here would be do not switch. Do not switch, but instead figure out a way to make this thing that you're doing, that you're already doing, more perhaps exciting, more fulfilling for you without having to completely switch directions and start from ground zero. Because the other thing too is that you don't necessarily realize, but the amount of time you have spent on your business, even if you've tried things that haven't worked, that is all really, really, really good data and feedback that is leading you to figure out what is going to work for your business. And so when you throw in the towel on something that you've been working so hard on, again, even if it feels like it hasn't given you what you thought that it would at this point, my general suggestion would be to continue in that direction and not just give up and, throw away all of the data, all of the learnings, all of the effort that has gone into getting it to where it is at this point. Um, and asking yourself the question, like, why are you feeling less excited about it? Like, one of the things I've really loved hearing from it, this is an idea that I've heard from different business podcasts in the past, but business is not really about motivation. It's about discipline. And so if you find yourself in a place where you're feeling less motivated, you're feeling less excited about your business, that motivation and excitement ebbs and flows. You're not always going to feel excited about your business. Like, trust me, you are not always going to feel excited about your business. Depending on the season of life that you're in, just depending on your mood day to day, it's not always going to be motivating. It's not always going to be exciting. So what has to exist is discipline and commitment. It's this idea that, okay, I started this thing, I committed to this thing. We need to keep moving forward, even if it's feeling challenging, even if it's feeling less exciting. Now, all that to say, at the same time, if you truly, and again, this is why questions like this tend to be so individualized. I never like to give any sort of a blanket statement. I'm more like to give you food for thought for how to think about your own scenario. But maybe there are going to be times where your business is just like not aligned with what you want to do anymore. You just feel like you're totally fine giving up on everything that you've done. You're totally fine, saying, hey, this was a great journey, but I just don't want to do this anymore, and putting that to the side and starting something different. But you just need to make sure you're doing it for the right reasons, and you're not doing it because maybe today you're just not feeling as excited about your business, or you think that the grass is going to be greener, because chances are it's not. In that other scenario, in that other business with that other niche, you're still going to run into the same challenges after that initial excitement, after that initial motivation. You're still going to run into probably the trough of despair, right? I know it sounds dramatic, but it is this idea that you're going to run into those struggles. That's just every single business. That's every single business. And that's just a real normal part of business ownership. And so we can't necessarily shy away from that or try and avoid that by continuing to switch. Okay. All right. So then the last question that I want to talk about is how much to pay yourself in your business. Okay. So there's a lot of different directions that you could take with this, but I'll talk about my own experience. And this has shifted and evolved over time. So when I first started my business, I had my business as a sole proprietorship. And then as time has gone on, I've switched to a corporation. And so how I pay myself in business has looked different over time. But I'll talk about the very beginning. And when you're bringing money into your business, and you're trying to figure out, okay, how much should I actually pay to myself versus how much should I keep in the business? Should I reinvest back in the business? Should I pay, how much should I leave in the business to pay for different tools, different tech platforms that I use, or that I'm able to invest back in, like business training, business coaching, business education, entrepreneurship, membership tier of Dietitian Success Center, right? So how much are you leaving back in the business versus how much you're paying yourself? So again, there's different ways you can think about this, but I really like the idea of paying yourself a percentage of your revenues every month. And the reason why I like that when you're just getting started is because then as your business grows, you are essentially rewarding yourself proportional to how your business grows. So typically my recommendation here is about 30 to 50% of your revenue you pay back to yourself in your business. Now, again, this is going to change and shift over time as your business matures. So for example, now, and the reason why I mentioned this was that, this strategy worked when I was a sole proprietorship, but now that I'm a corporation, I am actually an employee of my corporation. And so I pay myself a salary. So that is a set amount that I pay myself every month. So that, paying myself a percentage of the revenue doesn't make sense anymore. So again, that's why I'm, saying this with the caveat that it's not always going to be the same based on your business structure. and based on where you are in your business journey. But this is something you can totally talk to your accountant about, depending on where you're at. But, if you are a sole proprietor, it's just you and your company, if you are, growing your business or starting your business, I really do like the percentage approach. That's how I started. That's how I did it. Probably for the first year or two of my business is I paid myself, and I can't remember the exact amount, but around 30 to 50%. I think I started on, and what I would recommend is actually starting on the lower end of that if you can. So the other scenario here, the other thing to think about is like, do you have other income that you're relying on? So do you have a 9 to 5 job, and do you really need the money from your business, or do you not? So if you don't, then it can be really great to stay on the lower end of that 30 to 50%. So paying yourself 30%, and then you have more money to leave back in the business and either build up over time, build up as a savings, build up for, if you want to eventually leave your 9 to 5 job, and more money to be able to reinvest back in the business growth. Maybe it is spending that money again on a program that's going to help you learn and grow, or maybe it's even paid advertising. There's so many different things that you can spend that money on that are investing back in the business to see business growth. And so this percentage can shift over time. So if you're staying at 30% for a few months, then you can always reassess and you can decide, okay, I'm going to increase this a little bit more, increase this a little bit more. The other reason why I like this, and it's all based on a theory from the book Profit First. If you haven't read that book, I highly recommend it. It's a fabulous book about just how to think about finances in your business. And their recommendation is like really, or his recommendation, the author is really to start this approach from day one, where, the first $100 that you bring into your business, or whatever dollars that you bring into your business, like even if it's just 30% of that, so $30, you still pay that to yourself. And I think, that can be a really, I agree with that, because I like that from day one, you are enjoying the benefits of your business. That can be really rewarding. That can be really fulfilling. That can be really motivating, especially when you start to see that dollar value get bigger and you start to see yourself, you start to see you paying yourself more over time. Now, of course, I also want to caveat this with obviously, this is not financial or tax advice either, because how much to pay yourself could also be influenced by your tax bracket, and how to think about this strategically. That is very much a question for your accountant. But, if you're just starting out and you're thinking very simply about this, this can be one way to do it. Now, it can also be really helpful too to have a separate business bank account. If you don't already, where you have your personal account and you have your business bank account, because then it becomes a lot easier to just keep the two separate. And, you're actually paying yourself some money from your business bank account to your personal bank account versus just having it all in one place. And then you don't really know how much, you could unknowingly spend your business money on your personal stuff without really knowing. But some dietitians do that too. And if it works for you, that's okay. I just always preferred to have things separate and to use that percentage breakdown approach. And then again, things can change as your business matures, and always chat with your accountant. Accountants are a really great place to just ask about that strategy. What should you do? How should, how is that going to be influenced by your tax bracket, by your family, your household tax bracket? And then the other thing too, the other reason why I really like this approach is because it gives you more clarity too, and I think it gives you less feelings of uncertainty or even feelings of guilt around how much money to spend on your business. Because I think sometimes, especially when we're first starting out, we want to be lean, so we want to spend often as little as possible to be able to do our work and to be able to make our businesses grow. But it does cost money to make money. You do need to invest in certain tools and resources in order to be able to start and grow your business. And so, by allocating a certain percentage that every month, it can also be really helpful to say, yeah, okay, great. I can invest in this course or this coaching program or this or paid ads because I have a certain percentage of my revenue that I'm supposed to be using for that purpose. And that can feel good too. That can feel kind of comforting. Alrighty. And in fact, actually, my small business accountant is going to be coming in to do a Q&A session on bookkeeping in one of our future biweekly Q&A sessions or office hour sessions that we offer in the entrepreneurship tier of Dietitian Success Center. So we run these sessions every 2 weeks and we bring in different experts in different areas of business and entrepreneurship so that you can have your questions answered. So she's going to be talking all about bookkeeping and sort of the basics of how to keep solid books as a business owner, as an entrepreneur. Okay. Well, I hope that you enjoyed this episode. I hope you learned something. Again, if you haven't already, join the waitlist for the Dietitian Success Summit. And if you're interested in starting and growing your business with Dietitian Success Center, and if you have any questions, you can always just join the membership whenever you want. Just head on over to the pricing page on dietitiansuccesscenter.com and you can just join the membership right there. Or if you have questions about it, that's cool too. Just send me a DM on Instagram at christico.rd and I would be more than happy to answer your questions. All right. With that, I hope you have an awesome rest of your day and I hope you are enjoying whatever you're doing while you're listening to this podcast. And I will see you in the next episode.